this is Aruna. I am happy to meet you again with a video session on Gothic fiction. This session will be focusing on what does Gothic mean, its origin, and also the Gothic elements and some of the most prominent Gothic fictions of the 18th and 19th century. Let's see in detail what does the word Gothic mean. The words Goth and Gothic describe a particular group of tribal people from Germany who invaded into Europe during the Middle Ages. Middle Ages denotes the period of 5th century to 15th century. These people were called as barbarians because of their rude, violent, and uncivilized behavior. Afterwards, that is in the 18th century, the word Gothic did not refer the tribal people alone, and it became a symbolical representation of barbaric, superstitious, uncivilized, and unenlightened tendencies. Let me explain what is that symbolical representation. For example, if anybody is good at maths, we used to say that he is a Ramanujan. If anybody is good at dance, we used to market them as Michael Jackson. These people became the symbolical representation or an iconical figure in the field of maths and dance. In the same manner, a person with barbaric, uncivilized, rude, violent, and unenlightened behavior is called as a Gothic, irrespective of his social class. Finally, in the second half of the 18th century, the word Gothic morphed into the genre of Gothic literature. The term Gothic literature refers to the literary works which excessively used the elements of fear, death, horror, suspense, and gloom. The origin of Gothic tradition. The genre had its outset in the 1760s. Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto in 1764 is the first Gothic fiction. The book had only one title, as The Castle of Otranto in its first edition, but the first mention of Gothic appeared in the subtitle of the same book's second edition as The Castle of Otranto, a Gothic story, published in 1765. Let's have a glance at some of the most important and inevitable works in this tradition. The first one is The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole in 1764. You can see the appearance of the castle in the cover itself creates the element of fear in the mind of the reader. It tells the story of a man called Manfred. He is the lord of the castle. The second one is The Mysteries of Udolpho, written by a female Gothic writer, Anne Radcliffe. This book appeared in 4 volumes in 1794. It narrates the awful life of an orphan girl called Emily Aubert after her parents' death. Most of the critics cited this work as an archetypal Gothic novel. The next one is The Monk, a romance written by Matthew Gregory Lewis in 1796. This is the prime example of horror Gothic. Horror Gothic means the works which are written by the male Gothic writers are called horror Gothic. This work has 2 plot lines. The main plot line deals with the downfall of Ambrosio the monk, and the subplot deals with the romance of Raymond with a nun called Agnes. A few writers from the Romantic period and the Victorian period were influenced by the Gothic tradition, and they produced some of their works based on this tradition even in the 19th century. Usually 19th century is marked as the Romantic era. First comes Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. This book was published anonymously in 1818. That means without the name of the author, the book was published in 1818. The second edition of 1821 came with her name on its cover. This book tells the story of a young scientist called Victor Frankenstein. Some critics argued that it cannot be a pure Gothic fiction as it dealt with the subject of science. The next work is a short story by Sir Walter Scott titled The Tapestry Chamber, published in 1829. This story gives an account of General Brown's meeting with an apparition of a woman in an old castle. The third work is a Gothic novella, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, written by Oral Stevenson in 1886. This novella is an account of an investigation by a legal practitioner about the strange occurrences between his old friend Dr. Henry Jekyll and the evil Edward Hyde. The novella has a great impact on the society because the phrase Jekyll and Hyde enter into the vernacular to refer to people with dual nature, usually very good but sometimes shockingly evil. The next work is Bram Stoker's Dracula, published in 1897. This novel tells the story of a Dracula's attempt to go to England to have new blood, and also the war between Dracula and a small group of people led by Professor Abraham Van Helsing. This novel established many conventions of subsequent vampire fantasy, and so many movies were adapted from this novel Dracula. These are some of the most important Gothic elements. These elements are employed by majority of the Gothic writers in their works. These are some of the most important Gothic elements. These elements are employed by majority of the Gothic writers in their works. The first point, all these stories are set in haunted castle. Why the haunted castle was chosen? Because even an image of haunted castle can light up the fear in our mind. Then if a haunted castle is shown with a detailed description, automatically it will arouse the element of fear in the mind of the reader. And the second point, a damsel in distress. A lead female character of the novel, we can see them often fainting or screaming in fear. Most of the cases, they are locked in a room and tortured by some sadistic aristocrats. The character of Matilda in Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto and Emily Aubert in Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho serve as the best examples of this model. Next, an atmosphere of mystery and suspense. The Gothic writers used the burial walls, flickering candles, cracked mirrors, and portraits to create the atmosphere of suspense and mystery. The fourth point is, there is a ghost or monster to arouse the element of horror in the mind of the reader. Fifth one, an awful weather also plays a vital role in the Gothic fiction. Flashes of lightning, thunder, heavy wind with a heavy rain takes place before the appearance of a character or the beginning of a significant event in most of the Gothic novels. The next element is dream or nightmare. Disturbing or prophetic or dreadful dreams are used as a plot device to emphasize the character's insecurities and fears. The term prophetic dreams refers to the dreams which can foretell the future events. Seventh element is burdened male protagonist. We can find the protagonists of this Gothic fiction are aristocratic, they are moody, solitary, cynical, and they nurture a secret guilt or curse in their mind for a very long time. The next element is death. The Gothic novel is obsessed with death as it intensifies the element of horror in the mind of the readers. We have come to the end of the session. So far, we have learned the meaning of the phrase Gothic fiction, its origin, the elements, and also some of the most influential works of the 18th and 19th century. I hope it will equip you with some basic information about the Gothic fiction. I thank each one of you for watching this video. So keep learning, stay safe, stay home.